I'll press on to a word about capitalism itself.
Yep.
It's always fascinated me whether the very core pillars of capitalism are necessarily something that aligns with purposeful business in the first place, and whether there's work to be done in that sense as well.
Well, two thoughts on that. One is I grew up very near Port Sunlight, which was one of these model villages that these sort of Victorian industrialists created, and in that case, William Lever, whose company is now Unilever, and he created a model village for his workers to have good conditions to live in, and therefore a more sort of productive workforce. He created products like Lifebuoy soap, which were about saving lives, but also making money, and that was absolutely. It was definitely capitalism, but it was understanding that doing social good could benefit the firm in terms of a sort of stronger workforce and a bigger market for its product. Bill Gates said capitalism isn't perfect, but it's kind of where we've evolved to as a species, and therefore we might as well try and use it to address these huge challenges the world is. And I believe capitalism is the kind of best organizing construct we have. It definitely isn't perfect, but as long as it is held to account by pressure groups, by regulation, then I think it remains a very strong vehicle to drive humanity in the right direction, as long as it's held to account.
Yeah, absolutely. I was talking with somebody the other day, I forget the exact conversation, but they were essentially saying that, you know, business does have the solutions to net zero, it does have the potential solutions to climate crisis, and it has the potential solutions to employ people, to provide us with a way to pay our mortgages, to get stuff for our kids. You know, all of that sits within the context of capitalism itself, isn't it? And as you say, given that context is now the one that we're already working in, we'd almost have to tear everything down to its very basic foundations and rebuild, which in itself would be a virtually impossible task regardless.
I think so. And we're certainly not going to drive the innovation we need to tackle, you know, the poverty in the world or climate change. That innovation isn't going to come from government or the charity sector or NGOs. It will come from the market, I'm afraid. Now, that the Sustainable Development Goals were developed by businesses and not-for-profits and academia and governments coming together, and it has to be that analysis, and one can't become too powerful. When you get these sort of huge organizations that are sort of more powerful than nation states, then the sort of balance is beginning to get a bit out of whack, but the innovation will come from capitalism.
Yeah, fascinating. Let's see, we discussed capitalism. I'm conscious we're running through our allotted time a little. Would you be able to tell me a bit about the future, do you think, and perhaps how you might predict most businesses will align themselves in a decade's time, behavioral changes within what businesses have to do, and if we can, maybe try and encapsulate a sense of where the average business is going to be on sustainability and purpose in decades' time or so?
I mean, I just don't think it's an option anymore. I think that the two, we talk about externalities, the sort of external environmental cost of what you did as a business didn't used to be factored in. It has to be now. Regulation, you know, regulation from California to China to the EU to us, there is regulation forcing businesses to be on that journey towards, you know, net zero in some cases, and the need to have the sort of transparency now in supply chains. You can't risk really employing slave labor in supply chains and turning a blind eye to it and exploiting workers. The transparency of the internet is forcing that to change. So I think businesses will have to take those externalities, the sort of social impacts and the environmental impacts, have to be taken into account. They'll be forced to do so by government, but the market will get there ahead of them, and there will be winners and losers in that. And that's the change. And it's difficult, but I think that the change is happening everywhere. My son is a history teacher, and he told me yesterday that they'd had a department meeting where they'd said, unless history starts including sustainability in the curriculum, it will cease to exist as a subject in the next 10 to 20 years. Well, if that is happening, there is something happening in the world that this stuff is non-negotiable.
Fascinating. That's a very interesting point to finish on, actually. Just the fact that everything's becoming so rapidly mainstreamed that,
yes.
you know, in the time that I've been writing about this stuff.
Well, I just think the huge trends of climate
change that's developed in the last 20 years has been enormous.
Climate change and digital connectivity are changing everything.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, these are just the whole new world drivers and the whole new business drivers of the world, I think. But yeah, fantastic. Thank you, Andy. I think we've covered everything we wanted to for our audience there. Unless there's anything else you might like to mention to us.
No, it was good. Enjoyed talking to you.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. It's great talking with you. Hopefully we can talk again at some point in the future. Thanks very much.